Good evening. Welcome to Simpson at 8. Now coming to you at a real time Thursdays 8 p.m. and with a slightly revised format where we bring you breaking news and the major stories of the week. And what a week it has been. The big visitor of the week, of course, is UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who is right now enjoying a welcome reception by the Fijian government at the Grand Pacific Hotel. He spoke to the Fiji Parliament today and also had a bilateral meeting and press conference with Prime Minister Bainimarama earlier in the day, where he praised Fiji's contribution to peacekeeping.
The Fijian dimension, it is a visit of gratitude in which I want to express how much we appreciate the extraordinary contribution of the Fijian people and the Fijian government to all the important areas of action of the United Nations and all important areas of international cooperation. Fiji has been a strong and committed partner in peacekeeping. Fijian soldiers, Fijian police officers have shown enormous determination, enormous courage, and some of them, unfortunately, have lost their lives protecting the lives of vulnerable people, of women, of children, in some of the most dangerous places of the world. And there is a depth of gratitude of the whole of the international community in relation to Fiji that I want to express here very clearly.
The Secretary General also praised Fiji's leadership on climate change and later met civil society reps at USP, where they discussed a range of issues. One person who did not attend the meeting was Fiji Women's Crisis Center coordinator Shamima Ali. Ali made headlines, literally, on Tuesday when she spoke out against alleged intimidating tactics by police ahead of the Secretary General's visit. Simpson at 8 visited the Fiji Women's Crisis Center office today, where Shamima Ali said she was not happy with the time allocated to civil society organizations and was not happy with police wanting to find out what she intended to discuss with the UN Secretary General. So what were the nature of those calls? Were they coming to the mobile or the landline? Or?
No, on my mobile.
Right.
On my mobile.
And you have the call logs to show those
sure,
calls?
Yes.
What were they wanting to know?
This person has been calling me for a number of weeks, which the police special branch over the last 20 years or so have done with NGOs, that they would call and ask us what we're doing, if there was some major event taking place, if there was a workers' strike being talked about, whether we were going to participate. So they would ask things like that.
And that was normal.
And that was normal, and we just say, we talk about it, or I'll give them a lecture on human rights and things like that, and our rights and things like that. But it was, they have never asked us about what we're going to say to a particular person and things like that. So he said, I hear that you are going to, something to that effect, that I hear that you're going to be speaking to him, can I know what we will be saying to him and things like that. And so I told him that why I would not be going, that actually I was invited but I will not be going, and I told him that it was nobody's business what anyone said to the Secretary.
Right. So that is going, you're saying that is leading into a form of intimidation if they start to want to know what you'll discuss with the Secretary General?
Yes, definitely. And the other thing I do know for a fact, I handled that person, and I was going to raise it later on, but then I heard from some of my colleagues, their offices were actually visited, and one of the person they named was this person that had, and also this person had apparently mentioned my name and why I wasn't going and things like that. So that outraged me, because how dare they enter somebody's office, because and I would say illegally, they have no right to do that, especially NGOs intimidation. So I take that as intimidation.
This is the comment I got from the police today. You instead chose to raise the issue with the media instead of raising it to the Commissioner's attention, and it would have been acted on in good faith, based on the long working relationship that exists between the two institutions. What is your response?
Yes, of course, that relationship, this should in no way mar that relationship.
But it looks like it's going to mar that
So
relationship.
that's the, we'll continue doing.
Because why didn't you call the police commissioner and address that with him?
Well, because some recent issues that I have raised with him, I haven't had any response back. And, and it was just a conversation I had with the media, and it's up to me who I go to. And it's not that I have total faith in the media or anything like that. At that point in time, that is what happened. And I also felt that people needed to know. And that when people start speaking out, and I have been I am a former human rights commissioner, and I have been in the human rights movement for a very long time. And for people like me, when these things happen, it's important for us to speak out, because there seems to be an atmosphere of an environment of fear for people to speak out. And I really want to encourage people to speak out also when these things are happening. So the powers that be, especially given our position on the UN Human Rights Council, that we get our act together. And this is the crisis center. We do get a lot of complaints. So, and then where I choose to voice my concerns is my right.
Do you intend to speak with the commissioner about this in due course?
Well, of course, in due course, we will do what we need to do.
Because I can imagine, I mean, he's probably disappointed. It's, like Shamima ambushed me and one-sided me instead of speaking directly to me on this issue.
Well, he and I have that relationship. We do that. I do that, and sometimes he doesn't respond to me. So I think I can deal with that.
All right. Now, the other, obviously, the Fiji Human Rights Commission has also spoke up. They've asked you to, in good faith, raise your concerns with the Fiji Police Force. Again, raising concern why it was not raised with the commissioner, and that for 2 weeks it was going around, nothing was raised. And just on the eve of the arrival of the UN Secretary General, you chose to raise it. So it leads the question: were you trying to sabotage or create publicity out of the UN Secretary General's visit?
Look, anytime human rights defenders speak out, it's political. Everything has to be political.
Well, it does look political.
Yeah. Well, it can look political. It is not that it happened, but it happened at this time. And the thing is, I have very little faith in the Commission. I don't believe the Commission is functioning as a Commission should, and I believe that the Commission is very one-sided, and the Commission actually needs to be more independent. And I really don't have, any faith in the director. We don't even know who the commissioners are. So, who are the commissioners that we can go to? So, once again, I would say, who has the director?
Your lack of faith is based on what? On the
comments and things that he made, and recently some of the things that have come out, same-sex marriage. Right? It took him about 2 days to come up with a statement, and on that one there, he said that it's not something right or something like that will happen and things like that. So I don't believe that he supported, the community very well. The workers' issue that just came up. These are just two recent ones, where every time that he makes a statement, so it's useless. I'm a very busy person, so I'm not going to waste my time. And I also believe that there is a lot of emphasis on social and economic rights, and less on political and civil rights. And rights, you cannot divvy them up, and say one right is more important than the other. It doesn't happen that way. And if you are a person who's au fait with human rights, you will know that for sure. So I don't have that faith, and I don't believe that it's a compliant commission. And so therefore, but again, it comes down to where do I want to raise it, and
well, that's your right.
But a person like me would have very good reason, and some of the reasons I've told you would have very good reason not to, for the story to come out as it did.
What will be the next steps here? What would you like to see happen going forward?
Well, I think this is a lesson to be learnt, and for the authorities, and for the police to be a lot more careful and to really review their intelligence, department, and how do they approach people, and what for, and things like that. So people like me, I have the privilege of having a platform to speak out, but there are a lot of other people and a lot of other complaints that are coming here, and so those things definitely I will raise.
Police Commissioner Brigadier General Sitiveni Gilio released this statement to Simpson A on the matter. Gilio says it's sad to learn that the Fiji Women's Crisis Center coordinator has no faith in certain institutions when responding to his call and the call by the Fiji Human Rights and Anti-Discrimination Commission to lodge complaint with the police to address the issues concerning the matter at hand. He said, "We have opened our doors to her and a team who have come in to conduct numerous trainings on gender sensitivity. As we acknowledge the need to have our officers fully understand the importance of being sensitive to the needs of victims of gender-based violence. Gilio continued that they have communicated directly when issues concerning the conduct of any of our officers are brought to her attention, and that he has always encouraged an open channel of communication to quickly deal with any issues regarding police officers. This said would have done to be address the claims, he says, against the officer who she claims had allegedly called her several times regarding the UN Secretary General's visit. Gilio concluded that Ali has instead chosen to raise the issue with the media, instead of bringing it to his attention, which is questionable, as all issues raised directly with him have been addressed in good faith based on the long working relationship that exists between the two institutions. Those were the words of the Commissioner of Police, Brigadier General Sitiveni Gilio. Don't go away. After the break, Simpson A visited the office of the Fiji Human Rights and Anti-Discrimination Director Ashwin Raj to get his response on the issue and the lack of faith in the institution by Shamima Ali and others. Welcome back to Simpson at 8. As you saw in the first break, Fiji Women's Crisis Center Coordinator Shamima Ali expressing her lack of faith in the Fiji Human Rights Commission and the independence of the office. Simpson at 8 visited the Human Rights and Anti-Discrimination Director Ashwin Raj to get his response.
We spoke earlier with Shamima Ali, and she has no faith in you. She don't think you're independent. The commission is independent. She does not think that you're doing enough for human rights in this country. You're one-sided in your positions, and that not much is being done to really promote and protect human rights in this country. What is your response?
Stanley, she has the right to freedom of expression and it remains her prerogative. I respect that. However, I also want to respectfully differ from her statements, and I want to speak on the basis of facts and facts alone. She has claimed that the Commission has been quiet on the rights of workers, and she alluded to the WEF case. In one interview she also talks about the ATS workers. Let me very categorically state that the Commission is not going to interfere if a matter is before courts and tribunals. It's sub judice. We were fully aware of the fact that the unions have filed a matter before the Employment and Arbitration Tribunal. It's important that we respect that process.
Right.
I
So
have
once it's
issued
there,
statements, previously to say that we must, and this remains our consistent position on ATS. The strike by nurses that was threatened not so long ago with the WEF workers. That if there are matters before the tribunal, we should be able to exhaust existing institutional avenues, including the constitutional right to collective bargaining, before you proceed to strike.
so let's just jump back. So you are taking up workers' rights issues.
The Commission, as our records would show, the claim is that we don't deal with workers' rights. To date, we have looked at 78 complaints. Since my appointment as the Director of the Commission, we've looked at 78 complaints in relation to the breach of employment rights. Instead of posturing, what we've done is we've gone out to seek recourse in terms of the institutional avenues that are available
And you think that
to
you're
the
effective?
Commission. It has been effective, and this is why the Commission felt that we are not going to make comments on a matter that is sub judice.
The perception people have
Mhm.
is that the commission comes out and makes statements. It's always usually in support of the authorities or with the government,
Okay.
and not with the workers or the unions
Uh-huh.
or those that are having or who are the victims, so to speak.
Right. Good. I'm glad you raised that. The point is that at this juncture where matters are before the court, it's very important to not take sides with parties, right? In terms of who the victims are and who the perpetrators are. I tell you, the good example is that Shamima Ali is alleged that I haven't sided with the LGBTI community on the issue of same-sex marriage, and she said that I tried to defend the Prime Minister. Nothing can be far from that. The point is, from that fact, the point
Well,
is...
she's pointed to your statement.
Well, exactly. And I drafted and delivered a very, very careful statement, because she had said that the statement by the Prime Minister is actually contrary to international law. Now, I looked at international law and I looked at the jurisprudence from the European Court for Human Rights. Same-sex marriage is not a right in international law. So for her to claim that the Prime Minister's statement is contrary to international law is actually not correct. Her assertion that we are not talking about LGBTI rights is in fact not true. You know, I came back to this country in 2009. I was heavily involved in Fiji's first celebration of the International Day against homophobia, transphobia, biphobia, all of that, right? So the point is that
so you're being neutral and independent in all this?
More than that. I've been an LGBTI rights activist more than these people can, recall. We have been instrumental in the celebration of the International Day against homophobia, biphobia, transphobia. The commission, she was a human rights commissioner.
Yeah.
The point
independently appointed. She does not think you were independently
appointed. Well, very
appointed.
good. So much for us not being independently appointed. It took me in 2018, and remember the commission was established under the 1997 constitution. It took me in 2018 to have the first national consultation on the rights of LGBTI persons.
So you've done. So you say you've done more on this issue.
Not Stanley. This is not about point scoring. This is about setting the record straight.
Okay.
Right? You need to realize that there is political rhetoric and there is reality on the ground. The commission, hold on. The commission, when it comes to LGBTI rights, took a lot of flack because we were bold enough to do a 1 month long campaign on the rights of LGBTI persons, which was aired on television, in the cinemas, on radio.
This is through the commission?
This is through the commission in 2017. I'm just nonplussed that she wasn't aware that there was a month-long campaign by the commission when everybody saw it, right? We even received criticism for speaking out on LGBTI rights by, your homophobes and religious conservatives and all of that. Where was she? She never defended the commission.
So her point today, as you this week, was with regards to the calls by the police.
Sure.
On the police calling through and asking, what are you going to say to the Secretary General?
Sure.
Now, what is your position on
Stanley, first of all, it is everybody's constitutional right to exercise freedom of expression. That includes the right to express dissenting, views, including legitimate criticism of government, as long as it's within the bounds of law.
So you think that's stepping beyond the
police to police who says what,
right?
Who says what to the
or
secretary?
Wanting to find out what they're
Wanting
saying.
to find out. I've established that very, very clearly. My second point is this, and it's an equally important point. This has been happening in the course of 2 weeks. Okay, she doesn't have confidence in me. She doesn't have confidence in the commission. That's fine. You could have called the Fiji police force. You could have called the commissioner and said, hey, why is the police doing this? And they need to stop because this is not their place. Stanley, my question is, why do you wait 2 weeks and then release this statement and story on the occasion of the visit? When
I did ask her that question.
Well, when I did raise...
She said it's her right.
Right, exactly. So when I did raise this issue, she then decided to dismiss and said, oh, well, it's my right, what I do with it. But the point is, if you are raising an issue of an infraction of a human right, aren't you committed to solving it? Don't you think it's better for us to get a resolution so that it sets an important precedent? In the sense that the next time the police does not arbitrarily pick up the phone and ask somebody, hey, what are you going to talk about when the next UN official comes?
You stated that the commission has done a lot of work in a lot of issues. Shamima, and a lot of people will say they don't know much about what the commission is doing. Could the commission be doing a better job at outlining the amount of work that you're saying you're doing? Because the perception out there, you may say you want to deal with facts and reality. The perception out there is the commission is not doing much. It's in the job, and rightly or wrongly, of protecting the government.
Stanley, whose perception are we talking about? We're talking about the perception of a person, right, who is just less than 2 minutes away from a commission and has never walked here to have a constructive discussion with me. Right?
You'll be welcoming that?
She says that we are far removed from the people of Fiji. We have reached out to 52,776 Fijians. Just look at the rural and remote communities that we've been to, the schools we've been to maritime areas. Rotuma, Lau, Benga, Taviuni, Kia, Yasawas, Lamaiviti, Ovalau, Nairai, Batiki, Koro, Gau. all the way to the informal settlements of, Jittu Estate, Welia, the Hart communities. Look at all the schools that we've been to.
So those are awareness campaigns? Or?
Those are awareness campaigns, right? She claims that we privilege social and economic rights over civil and political rights, and she's questioning whether we're receiving complaints and whether we're independently investigating. Look at the number of complaints we've received. 477 since my appointment, and these are complaints that have been properly classified as human rights violations. You look at the type of complaints. You look at the type of complaints and you tell me whether this is just social and economic. Look at that, right? Human rights violations concerning women, strip search of females in public places, arbitrary detention. You look at
so it's a whole range of.
You look at the issues around discrimination facing LGBTI persons, right? Racial profiling, access to justice for foreign nationals, including expression and assembly, access to courts and tribunals, rights of refugees, human trafficking, right? The question of dignity for persons with mental illness, freedom of speech, issues around hate speech, employment relations, right to health, right to education, right to religion, right to economic participation. Look at the questions around right to housing and arbitrary eviction. Look at the matters around rights of children, right?
So a whole range of rights that's there.
Not only that, Stanley, not only that.
The question will be,
if we are not independent,
those are things that you're receiving or things that you're doing something about?
We are not only receiving but doing something about it. Look at this. Look at the number of cases
because
that we've taken to court.
Because the question then will be the effectiveness of the commission. If you're receiving so much, how much is being resolved?
Look at the cases we've received, right? And that we've taken to court, right? Through the Proceedings Commissioner. And if the questions are being asked whether we're effective or not, a 10-year-old child, right, had taken the Fiji police force to court for arbitrary detention through the Human Rights Commission. That child was awarded $25,000, right, by the High Court. Another individual who was also arbitrarily detained, the Commission exhausted another remedy in terms of a conciliation conference. And this individual was awarded $40,000. Another matter is before the Supreme Court. So let's not politicize this issue. I mean, where
maybe people are not aware of what you're doing.
No.
You're saying you're not blowing your trumpet, but the people need access to this information so that they can make up their mind.
The people, the 477 cases that have come before, right, far outweigh 2 or 3 people making the noise that they are.
There's more. You can hear in Parliament.
That's fine. But still, who are these people, right? They're
representatives of the people. They're members of Parliament.
But they are not the people. There's a fundamental difference. These are ordinary folks that come from all walks of life. All walks of life, if they can be courageous enough and have the temerity to come to the Commission and lodge a complaint and seek restitution of their rights, what is wrong with these people?
Okay.
Right?
So
if Miss Ali were to lodge her complaint with the Commission, we would act on it like we would for the 10-year-old child. There's no distinction.
Has there been any complaint lodged by Miss Ali of the Fiji Women's Crisis?
No, I mean, she doesn't talk to us, and that's fine, right? But my point is, why do you issue statements and shoot, by the hip when you're 2 minutes away? She worked with me. She invited the Commission to train the police on gender-based violence and all of that, and the Commission's done all of that. But I'm sorry, if you're going to be territorial, right, and you want to occupy an indomitable moral plateau and judge the rest of us without constructively working, we're not going to take this country forward. You identify a human rights problem, work towards its solution.
What do you intend to do, work stronger, to change the perception that some of these people
Stanley,
have?
Our annual reports are going to go to Parliament. That is going to dispel a lot of misinformation about the Commission. But look, I don't think the Commission is going to do anything differently. We have had an active advocacy initiative. We're going to continue with that. If anything, we're going to intensify that in terms of reaching out to ordinary Fijians. But we've also engaged with civil society organizations, and we will continue to do that.
You see the list that you can do better into changing the perception?
Anyone can do better, because human rights is a journey. We take cases where we have failed, and the Commission has failed. We were taken to task for instituting proceedings in a particular case where somebody had died in custody. And even though the Commission was lambasted by the courts, right, for instituting proceedings where they said, it is the role of the DPP and all of that, we still test the limits of the law. So, it is very, very unfair to cast aspersion at a Commission that is doing its work. They talk about the fact that we are not Paris Principle compliant. I agree with that. I inherited a commission that is not Paris Principle compliant. It is not my doing that the commission is not Paris Principle compliant. But we are also working with international institutions
To get to that
point. And
Right.
it's not something that can be done overnight.
Right.
It will take a few years. We need to produce annual reports to Parliament to make sure that the annual reports show that we are dispensing with
So
our
that
mandate.
annual report is coming soon in
Now
Parliament?
we have come to that point. 3 annual reports are going to Parliament.
And you were telling me that this is going to be information.
It's going to be in the
tomorrow's
annual
paper.
report, but we're also publishing things in the media so that the people can see the work that the Commission is doing. Because you see,
Because could you have been
It's-
more proactive in letting people know
no,
about
Stanley,
this?
no.
Because
My-
it seems like you're reacting to Shamima Ali.
No,
in
no, no,
this
no, no,
regard.
no, 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 no. The point is, and I think the public needs to understand, when we are firefighting on a daily basis, when the likes of Shamima Ali cast aspersion, walk away, it becomes our responsibility to clarify the facts. If in the course of a day, I'm busy fighting those allegations, when do I get the occasion? And there are only 24 hours in a day. We receive complaints, we investigate, we make submissions to Parliament, we deal with these allegations and all of that. When do you think we have the time, in the course of a week or a day, to actually sit down and talk to the people of Fiji constructively?
It is an important.
about
It is an important.
It is an important thing. But the point is that, the firefighting needs to stop. The firefighting needs to stop so that we can constructively engage with the people of
So you'd
Fiji.
like people to have more faith and get more confidence into the commission.
Stanley.
And at least give it a chance to.
No, I think we are clipping the wings before the imagination is taking flight. Basically, the commission has been unfairly criticized and assessed. We have been quiet, and where we have been quiet, we've been quiet for very, very specific reasons.
That will be the question a lot of people will have, is if the police do something, you would take the police to task, any authority.
I've made it very clear that it is the constitutional right of people to express their views, and it is not the place of the police to go and surveil and police and say, well, what are you going to say, right? As much as I wouldn't appreciate it if somebody says, hey, what is the kind of conversation you're going to have with XYZ people? You have the right to freedom of expression, you have the right to privacy, and you have the right to be free from fear of, from reprisal and recrimination, right? So we're very clear about that. But the point is now, can we do something to address this? And this is why when I issued the statement in good faith. But you see where she's going with it. The whole thing is a publicity stunt to just make the country look bad.
Well,
we need to do more than that.
That
I know
that is
things
not
are
the
not
way she felt.
well.
when we
I
asked
know
the
things are
question,
not perfect at home.
Mm.
But the thing is, can we move towards addressing these things? Right? In her eyes, I'm not a human rights person. That's fine.
She's told me as much.
Well, and that's fine, right? You can't change everybody's perception. But the point is, can she access these institutions to remedy the wrong that has happened, right? And this is where I come from. You see, you need to be reasonable.
So this is a good debate. I think it's a healthy discussion. I think everyone wants to see a strong human rights commission do its work, and I think everyone needs to get to a stage where they can have confidence in the commission.
A fired up Ashwin Raj, the director of the Fiji Human Rights and Anti-Discrimination Commission. Don't go away, we'll be back after the break. Welcome back to Simpson at 8. We now take you back to last week where we had two competing images of the country. The government pulling off an impressive and effective high-level global gathering of around 2,000 delegates for the Asian Development Bank Board of Governors 52nd annual meeting that was held at Danarau. While here in Suva, a high-stakes face-off between the Fiji Trades Union Congress, the police and government played out on the ground, in the media, and especially on social media.
Bulaganaka, everyone. It's Friday, the day we were supposed to have the national protest, but here we are. Here we are at FTUC, and even though you may have heard that the decision of the court yesterday was not in favor of us, not in favor of our workers, but we're still here, and the resolve is stronger.
Going back to the Danarau meeting, here is a short video by the Department of Information highlighting some of the events that took place at the ADB meeting last week.
Bula Vinaka. and a very good morning to you all. Welcome to Fiji, and welcome to the 2019 annual meeting of the Asian Development Bank.
Fiji has done a wonderful job in the preparation of this, in the planning, because it's all gone, as far as I can see, with everything that we have attended, it has gone like clockwork.
Congratulations to Fiji, because this has been a spectacular performance in what you can show us of professional tourism and a very welcoming people, and so it's been a great arrangement.
That was something the country could be proud of, although concerns are being raised by some about the cost borne by government in hosting the meeting. The ADB meeting, however, sets the stage for the country to be hosting bigger gatherings in the future. In the weeks ahead of the ADB meeting, the FTUC had called for a nationwide strike, saying they were particularly seeking redress for Water Authority of Fiji workers who had been laid off and were expected to be laid off in big numbers. The permit to strike, march or rally was denied, and the union sit-in didn't last. FTCU General Secretary and other unionists were arrested and questioned as police muscled in with commitment. Simpson A managed to speak to unionist Atar Singh during the standoff.
Mr. Singh, can you just give us an update on what's taken place here this morning? Who are these people that have gathered here, and why are the police here?
Well, the people here are the members of the National Union of Workers who were affected by the terminations at the Water Authority yesterday. And they came in here largely to compile their grievances, individual grievances. As you know, Water Authority is an essential service, and any grievance in the industry, I think, needs to be filed on an individual basis. They're here with their lawyers, they're processing those documentation. I think the unions also using the time to also talk to them regarding the collective agreements and their rights and so forth. So that's happening. In the meantime, the police has approached us, and they're here, as you can see, and they are saying that they've decided that they will not allow any kind of gathering either in public place or in private dwelling. Now, as you know, this is our private property. It belongs to the Fiji Traditional Congress and its affiliates, and these are members of affiliates. So they're here and they're entitled to use the place. But we have assured the police that their presence here will be peaceful, and that there will be no attempt to disrupt anything or to disturb anything. So they're here quietly, they're doing their thing, and then they will, once they finish their work here, once they finish their business here, they'll hopefully finish their lunch and then disappear.
The matter went to tribunal twice, which denied all orders submitted by the union against the Water Authority of Fiji. It instructed the Water Authority to issue a circular to all former employees whose contracts have ended, outlining details of the situation and instructions on how to apply for the next round of projects. The tribunal further ordered both parties to undertake an extensive review of outstanding issues and resolve any compliance concerns that may have arisen as a result of the big layoff. It also ruled that collective agreements-related matters raised by the union and pending employment issues are to be taken up with the arbitration court. That was Simpson at 8 for the evening. We hope you enjoyed the show and will join us again next Thursday at the same time. Good night.